Masked looters set cars on fire, rocks thrown at police. One police officer actually fired a shot into the crowd. This is Sweden. Joining us now, Nigel Farage, the man behind Brexit and the leader of politics in Britain. Nigel, officials in... You know this story, but I want you to straighten it out for our viewers. Officials in Sweden insist, there is no problem with migrants and crime. That's nonsense, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think that Sweden is, its politicians, but particularly its media, are in denial more than any other part of Europe. Let me tell you why. There is now an established, agreed convention amongst all the Swedish broadcasters and newspapers that they do not ever give the identity, religion or nationality of those that perpetrate crime. These things are just listed as crime statistics, whether I'm talking about rape or murder or whether it's just outright looting and rioting. And the Swedes are in denial. And frankly, what is going on in Sweden is that in their efforts to be politically correct, they're not being factually correct. They're trying to hoodwink Sweden and the rest of the world. And
it undermines belief in the media, it undermines belief in government because they're just not telling them the full truth. I think it's a very dangerous thing to be getting into in Sweden. But Nigel, I'm sorry, let me just carry on for a second here. I've got a report from the BBC that a Brit was imprisoned in Guantanamo. He's released, goes back to Britain. He sues the British government on the grounds that British agents mistreated him on his way to Gitmo. He wins $1 million, or just over $1 million in compensation from British taxpayers. Now we hear that gentleman on the screen there just a moment ago, he blew himself up in Mosul, I think it was. So, forgive me, Ash, but I'm going to go straight to Nigel.
Yeah.
Now, what on earth is the British government doing paying over $1 million to a man who then becomes a terrorist in Mosul? What's going on?
There's been this assumption for the last few years that the Americans have thrown all process out of the window and that people were chucked in Guantanamo Bay without good reason. Well, clearly, in this case, there was good reason. So the fact that he was paid $1 million in compensation is astonishing. But what's even worse is that thereafter, we weren't monitoring this guy, because we've literally at will had hundreds of people with British passports going back and forth to the civil war in Syria. And I think we've got to get a lot tougher with people that we suspect of these crimes. This reflects very badly on the British government indeed.
What is the reaction of the British people to this story?
I think the British are a bit more advanced than the Swedes when it comes to these sort of dilemmas. People are absolutely horrified and outraged. As I say, it's not just the money, that's bad enough. It's the fact that we do not appear to be monitoring people like this. And, OK, this guy's blown himself up, but hundreds of people have gone from Britain to fight in Syria, to fight with ISIS, to become even more brutalised, and then at will have come back into our communities. We've got to get a lot tougher on this stuff.
A real fast update, please, on the two elections coming up in Europe. Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, he might win. Marine Le Pen in France might win. What's the odds here of them both winning?
Oh, I think Geert Wilders will top the poll in the Netherlands. I have little doubt about that. But whether he can form a coalition government under their system, I doubt. As far as France is concerned, Marine Le Pen has put out her manifesto, her platform, her 144-point plan for France. When it comes to questions like terrorism, when it comes to questions like the European Union, it is very sound and very solid. It remains to be seen who will get through to the last round. There'll be about 14 candidates that compete in the first round, and 2 will go to a head-to-head. I would say this to you. If it's her against the young socialist Macron, good-looking though he is, if it's